Hello, Demon Clung, Archer Monologues. Tuesday, 9/20/2016. It's 10:42 a.m. where I am. It's 10:42 where I am, no matter where you are. Just finished up an episode talking about some creepy clowns. You know, there's something going on here with the creepy clowns. I don't understand. You know, clowns are like coming out of the woodwork or something, and terrible things are happening. And I don't know. I haven't heard of any terrible things happening yet, except somebody's going to shoot a freaking creepy clown one of these days. Pretty soon, I imagine. And then all hell's going to break loose. You just can't kill clowns. It's just not, you're not allowed, or whatever. All right. So talked about that on the last episode. All right. Let's talk about something else. Creepy clowns. You know, like Donald Trump and Hillary. All right. It's ironic, maybe, huh? Alright, let's just go through some headlines here. So I get this email newsletter. This one is called, well, let's get it right. I've got to go up to the top here. Independent Journal Review. I get this in the email every day. Sometimes like 2 or 3 times a day. And they have articles of interest, I suppose. And just go through some of the headlines here. Just so we have an idea. Apparently, Hillary is now suggesting that if she's elected president, she's going to offer people free college. I bet she got that idea from that other weird guy, what's his name? Bernie Sanders. Wasn't that part of his platform? Free college for everybody. Yeah. Compared to today's prices, my college times... my college expense, my college tuition, for example, back in the old days was like practically nothing. I mean, it was practically free back in the 60s. Mid-60s. I think my tuition was $150 a semester. I kid you not. I could go to college for a year with $300 in tuition and another $100 in books and supplies, because the books were expensive, still are, yes. And didn't have a computer back then. But today, how much? $100,000 a year to go to freaking college? What? Talk about freaking crazy. All right. That's not what I wanted to talk about. I'm just saying. Apparently, according to the headline, Hillary Clinton is now promising free college education for everybody, I guess. I'm not going to read about it. It's in an article, and I'm not going to get into it because it's just not a good idea. Oh, I'm not against free education. Education is free if you think about it. All you got to do is find something you don't know, learn it, and then you got it. And you've got an education in that particular subject. I'm self-taught myself. I've been to college. I learned stuff because I said, gee, I think I'll learn some stuff about stuff. Since I'm here at a place that's like a place where you're supposed to be able to learn stuff. And I'm not particularly fond of teaching stuff because teachers, that's not the right direction. You know, it's the right attitude. It's not like, oh, you need to teach these people stuff. And no, what you need to do is make it available to them so they can learn it. Learning is the important part of that. The equation is find the knowledge, learn it. Then you're learned. However, that's the free education. If you want free, then, find yourself a country that, socialist place, and go for it. Because what the hell's the government doing involved in education anyway? I live in an area where there are 2 universities. In fact, there's 3, 4, 5. There's like a half a dozen in the proximity of my home in North Central West Virginia. As I like to say, west of a virgin, the other Virginia. And I actually have to explain that to people sometimes. They don't. What? Yeah. All right. Let's see. What else we got here? Don't think so. Don't think so. Don't think so. All right. We were talking about the bombings the other day and some Pakistani guy or something. One of those freaking terrorist things going on again. All right. Don't care about Donald Trump's wife or girlfriend, daughter, whatever she is. All right. The Bushes have stayed quiet since Jeb Bush dropped out, but the new report suggests HW is voting for Hillary. Who gives a fuck? And why should we give a flying shit fuck who this asshole votes for? I mean, I didn't know felons could vote. I thought they took away the right to vote when you freaking committed crimes against humanity. One of them is fathering, George W. Bush. That should be a felony right there, because, he's like, oh, I'm the father of Adolf Hitler reincarnated. Nothing to be proud of, I'm sorry. Scumbag. NFL players plan to protest the national anthem at a venue that's sacred to veterans, dedicated to the defenders of our liberty. No. Wrong. The United States military has not defended the freedom of this country, of these people in America at all, ever since, since the American Revolution. A couple 100 years ago. I mean, let's think about this. How are you defending my freedom by going over there to Iraq and, murdering those people? Like over 1 million, as I understand it. That's not protecting my liberty, because there isn't a person in Iraq ever that threatened my liberty. None. Zip. Zero. Zilch. Not happen. Case closed. I want to spend a whole episode of this show talking about the football players and their protests and shit, but there isn't anybody in this country that should be. I'm saying should. Yeah, I know. The doctor told me I shouldn't say should, but, fuck the doctor. I know more than the doctor, because she's like a psychologist. She's fresh out of college and like, oh yeah, like, I'm sorry, you're wrong, doc. And so moving on, Sacred. No, you're not going to Iraq and Afghanistan and dropping, bombs and killing people with drones in Pakistan and other countries. Just no, you're not. You're defending. You're working for. You're like a Nazi soldier that's working for Adolf Hitler. I'm sorry. That just keeps coming back to that, doesn't it? committing genocide and you're participating in a crime against humanity. And, just following orders is no excuse. Nuremberg trials, remember? You're a Nazi. You're guilty of being a Nazi. It just doesn't matter if you ever killed anybody or not. You are part of that machine that murders people in mass numbers. And, you're pathetic. Or you're just plain fucking stupid. Oops, almost got to a rant there. So here's the deal. Nobody in this country should be, showing any respect or honoring anything that has anything to do with the United States terrorist organization of empire, the U.S. government. And their little tiny collaborators, state and local governments. They're all in cahoots. Fucking Nazis. They act like Nazis. So, yeah, get all outrageous. Get all hysterical. Oh. Excuse me. Goddamn rednecks. I'm serious. That player, he's like an American, and I ought to ship him out. You ought to kill him or something, because he's doesn't believe in paying tribute to a fucking terrorist organization. Alright. Moving on. Not gonna go there anymore today. That's okay, fine. Okay, just hold on. I'll be back. Alright, I'm on Facebook. Looking at one of these threads here. My good friend Denny Birch. I'm going to stay optimistic about Denny and for a while, because so far he's been at least making an effort. So he may be one of the good guys, believe it or not. So at any rate, talking about religion. Ho, ho, ho. He's taking on religion. God bless him. That's a joke. So anyway, talking about the tax-exempt status of the churches. Let me tell you something. Most churches in this country, America, are corporations. They became corporations. Now, I'm not sure how the conversation went on that one. Here's the preacher guy, and the church fellows, who committee, whatever body that they have that kind of runs the church business. Let's get incorporated, and then ask the government for permission to practice our inalienable rights, to exercise our religious beliefs. And we will be tax exempt because, we asked the government for permission to be tax exempt. Okay. Do you really want to trust and believe in somebody who actually gives up their inalienable human right to practice their religious beliefs as they see fit by becoming a corporation? Because corporations don't have rights. That's the way the law is in regards to corporations. You become a corporation, you are now engaging in a privileged activity. You become a fictitious entity. This is not I'm not just making this up, people. This is the fact. This is the law. This is the way it is. You hear about it, in school, at least I did, we have inalienable human rights, protected by the Constitution. Yeah. Not lately, I can tell you that. Not lately at all. Once you become incorporated, you become a fictitious entity, a entity that the government grants you the privilege of engaging in a privilege, which is worshiping your God or whatever you do. Now, I'm not sticking up for Christians here because they're not very bright people, and I'm not saying I hate them because they're just there and they're like just not smart. It's just a fact. Well, let's just call that an observation on my part, a critical analytic observation. Christians are not very smart. They're just not, because smart people don't believe in mythological freaking nonsense. Sorry. If you're smart, you got a brain, it works, even normally, even like a 12-year-old. I mean, come on. I'm going to become a corporation so I can be told what to do by the government. So I mentioned a part about the First Amendment where it says, no law shall be made to infringe upon the human rights, the natural inalienable human rights of individual human beings. And so you don't need, it's like you have the right to practice your religion as you see fit. The government can't say anything about that because it's against the law for the government to say anything against it. So of course they come up with this grand scheme to incorporate churches so that you can become tax exempt, which is absurd. I mean, seriously, it's just fucking absurd. Absurd, because if you have the right to practice your religion and therefore have a church, build a church building and go there and do whatever you do there, like, worship and sing some hymns and shit, hey, you have a right to do that. I think it's pretty much universally accepted fact that in America, you have the right to go to church and rejoice, practice your religion as you see fit, agree with Christianity or not, become part of, be a Christian or not be a Christian, or be an atheist, or whatever your religious inclinations might be. I don't need to ask the government for exemption because, I'm a church. You get an exemption because you're a corporation, a supposedly non-profit organization, a charitable organization. You don't get tax exempt. Just go, I'm a church. I'm tax exempt. Please, give me that, grant me the privilege of being tax exempt. No, it's a right. So, separation church and state and all that concept. So, I mean, come on. Get real, people. All right. It's talking about churches being tax exempt. Most churches in America are corporations. Some idiots got the idea in their head that we need to be corporations because churches are just like a business, and we need to run it like a business, with corporate officers, so we can ask the government for, the privilege of engaging in a privilege. Ask the government permission to engage in a privilege and thus get tax exempt status, which is stupid, since you don't turn a right into a privilege. You don't get a corporation. You don't become a corporation to get the tax exemption. You've got the tax exemption because it's an inalienable right to practice your religion. Like, have a church. I have a church. I established a church about 12 years ago. A humanist church. And I didn't ask the government for permission. There's no license. There's no permission. There's no incorporation. I'm exercising a right. A human, inalienable right, and, I'm just exempt because rights are exempt. So my church is exempt by natural law and the Constitution, which says, hey, You have the right to exercise your rights, and one of those is the right to your religious beliefs and practices. So why would I get a corporation license? Why would I even think about it? Why do most churches in America get this dingy from the messenger? But don't, just ignore that. Like me, I am. It's really odd how people just, I'm going to become a corporation and give up my right to practice my religion as I see fit and engage in a privilege of having a church and being tax exempt. It's absurd. And the fact that people don't get that is just even more absurd. I don't understand people. Why would you do that? Seriously. I established a church about a dozen years ago. I am an ordained humanist clergyman. Somebody said, well, you need to register that with the state or something. I said, why? Why would I want to be, why would I want to register my right with a fascist government? I mean, if the government was honest and obeyed the law, like the Constitution, which tells the government what to do and what not to do, because it's, the corporation, government is corporation. So, and corporation that creates corporations. Privileges. So it's just an absurdity. And you try to tell people stuff and they don't listen. It truly amazes me that people are like that dense that they can't see what's clearly, plainly in front of their face. Shall make no law. And yet, let's join the corporation club and, give up our privileges. Well, our rights, and then trade them for a privilege. I believe there's a law that says, you can't campaign for political candidates from the pulpit. Well, if you're a corporation, I guess the creator of the corporation, the government, has some say in how you conduct your corporate business. But why would you do that? Why would you let yourself fall into that trap? That's just stupid. I'm a corporation. No, not. No. Why would you be a corporation? Why would you incorporate your religious beliefs? Like getting a license to believe in God, if that's your religion. I don't, and my religion is humanist. So if you don't know what that is, look it up. Google humanism. Give you an idea. A lot of great people, or well-known people, were humanists. I dare say that maybe Thomas Jefferson was one. Won't give you a list of those that were or are or could be considered humanists. Michelangelo. All right. So if you got a church, you want to. I just did it. And to be honest with you, I got ordained because I wanted some sort of official recognition that I'm a humanist, and I have all the rights of a humanist clergyman. I could call myself a reverend or a rabbi or whatever, but that's a little bit too much like the chosen path of, So anyway, you got your shall make no law clause, and separation of church and state is a derivative of that clause. And Thomas Jefferson was quite adamant about that. Christians shouldn't be involved in government. I'm not a Christian. I'm a humanist. So you just. Well, anyway, now you know. I told you. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to take my word for it. It's the law is what it is, and the principles of freedom are what they are. And the right to practice my religious beliefs as I see fit means I have the right to do so, and it's not taxable. It's not licensable unless you're foolish enough, I say stupid enough, to become incorporated. Ironically enough, the fraudulent marriage program invented by the government is another case of people giving up their right to marry in exchange for the privilege to be a corporate entity that the government calls marriage, which of course isn't marriage at all. It's nothing to do with marriage. It took maybe 2-3 generations for every American, not every American, but most Americans to believe that state marriage is real marriage and it's the only way to be married, and that the government has the right to set the terms and conditions for a marriage to exist. You get a license to get married. And it's like, I've had people tell me, say, it's the only legitimate way to get married is to get a marriage license. If you don't have a marriage license, you didn't ask permission from the state to get married and exercise a right, then you're not married. That's just bullshit. And we have a thing called common law marriage, which is closer to being real marriage than any other kind. And why would you want to why would you want your marriage to be a corporation? Why would you want to participate in a corporate fictitious entity? What does that mean? If you get a state marriage license and you get married you're just joining the fraudulent program called marriage, which is like fraudulent because it's not marriage. The government can use the word marriage to describe their program, a program like food stamps, welfare, any number of government privileges that you can, programs that you can participate in. Marriage, state marriage is one of those programs. And a program, if you understand the concept, a program is something that is created, in this case by the government, and it's like, it's just not the real thing, and it has nothing to do with the real thing. Real marriage, which is your human right, your inalienable, natural human right to marry or not marry, or be married in whatever fashion you believe you want to be married in. You can call it common law marriage. You can call it marriage whatever you want. You can, and the definition of marriage, if you want to become a part of the marriage program, the government program, then they set the rules because it's their program. They invented it. They didn't invent marriage. They didn't invent real marriage. That's been around since the beginning of human existence. Adam and Eve, didn't get married. Well, that's a fairy tale, but as an example. And Christians are very fond of saying things like, in the eyes of God, they're married, Well, Adam and Eve, no corporate fraudulent program for them. Don't think there were any governments at that point in this fictitious fairy tale story. But if you want to, and the state defines what that program is and what the qualifications are to be a part of that program, that corporate program, that fictitious entity situation. And one of those is they define what a marriage is. Like the government can define marriage as between a man and a woman. Well, that should be a clue right there that it's not for real, because I don't need the government to tell me what the definition of the word is. Not in real life, but the government can set the definitions of what the terms and conditions of becoming a part of that program. I keep saying the word program. If you don't know what a word program means in regards to the government, then you should do some research on that, because government programs are not exercising rights. It's just corporate privilege. So if you join the program, then you got to play by the program's rules. And, if you don't like the rules, then don't join the program. Like anything else. If you don't like the rules of getting food stamps, then maybe you don't want food stamps. For the American people, it's like they've been totally duped over a period of, say, 100 years. I think the first government law regarding marriage, the government marriage program, was 1859. Before that, there was no such thing as government marriage in America. Abraham Lincoln, I don't think, was married into the government program. He was probably the last president that was actually married. Now, that's not to say that if you go down and you get a license and you get the application for the license and you fill it out and you register your marriage, your wedding ceremony with the state, that doesn't mean your marriage is not valid. It just means that you have the wrong idea about how that came about. And you're deluding yourself if you think that being a part of the marriage program actually makes you really married. I'm not making this stuff up. This is for real. It's what it is. I'm describing it as it is. It is factual, historically proven to be true. And anybody that claims to be free in a free society understands that you can exercise your inalienable right to marry or not marry as you please, and define it as you want to define it, because it's your marriage. Since when does the state have anything to say about you and your wife or your husband or your mate or your spouse or your other half or whatever? Since when does the state have the right to define that for you? And if you don't like the definition the state provides for you, well, why would you just join up anyway? Look at the same gender marriage. Loud car going by. They just recently said, yeah, you can marry someone of the same gender. Oh, by the way, it's same gender marriage, not same sex marriage, because sex means what it means, and it doesn't mean gender. People believe it does because they've been duped into believing it is so, but it's not. Words mean what they mean. And that's assumption that is the fact that if you get married to another person, that you're going to that has something to do with sex. The sex is just a part of that relationship. It's nothing to do with the marriage, the program, or in reality. There are lots of people that live in sexless marriages. Marriage program marriages and real, natural, human right marriages. You understand? Now you know. I've just told you. That's the truth of it. There's no argument there, because what I just said is factual and consistent with the concepts of marriage and the government program that's fraudulently called marriage, because it's not. If you want to define marriage as one man and another man, or one man and four wives, or whatever, See, polygamy is not a crime. It's not against the law. People think it is, but it's not. Can't be. You can't make something a crime. It's a natural right. And you have the right, and you've had the right before government even existed, to have a relationship with anyone you want. That, as long as they want to have a relationship with you, mutual agreement and all that. And I point out to you that people under 18 have that same right, regardless of what the government tries to make you believe. So, if you want to be married, then just be married. If you want to have a ceremony, which is not getting married, it's just a ceremony, a ritual that people go through, and it's traditional, and it has a lot to do with different cultures that have different methods of going through that ceremony. State has nothing to do with that. And I can perform weddings, by the way. I didn't say marriages. I can perform weddings, ceremonies. I can lead the ceremony, the ritual. And it can be designed in whatever way the participants want it to be done as. It's freedom. You have the right. If you're a Christian and you want to follow the traditional Christian ritual, then that's fine. Whatever turns you on. But you don't have to do it that way. Because that's the whole idea of freedom. Is that you're free to do what you want the way you want, as long as you don't violate anybody else's rights. And marrying somebody mutually is all right. And you can't force people to marry you. I mean, that would be a crime. That would be a violation of their right to say, I willingly do not want to be married to you. Okay, then. Can't do it then. Can't be done. Free society, free country. There are laws protecting those rights, which the government, of course, ignores nowadays, but still. If it was a legitimate government, then they would respect your rights, and they wouldn't try to con you into becoming a corporation. All right? Now you know. All right. If you were paying attention, you've learned something today. You should learn something every day. You should make it a goal, a life premise to learn something every day. As much as you can learn. Because if you learn it, it's in your head, and it'll squeeze out the bullshit and the nonsense. Eventually. And you'll become a better person. Probably even a happier person. Because you won't have all of that nonsense in your head. You'll have good stuff in your head. You'll be smarter. Not necessarily more intelligent in the sense of having a higher IQ, though I kind of figure if you use your brain logically, rationally, sanely, that you will gain a certain amount of increased capacity to think. Thinking logically expands your mind and allows you to think better. So you could say you actually have gotten smarter, a higher IQ. The last IQ test I took asked me questions, and if I didn't know stuff, then I couldn't have answered the question properly. But now that I do know stuff, more stuff than when I took the test the last time, then I'm thinking my IQ would be a little higher, considering I can answer more questions correctly because I know more stuff. So knowing stuff can make you smarter. Interesting concept. Yes? All right. learning stuff and knowing stuff and being smarter is a good thing, and I enjoy that. It's one of the main core elements of being alive for me. Why shouldn't that be true of everyone? Of course, naturally, there are people who have limited capacity to think and to learn, and we feel bad for them. We don't always feel bad for the idiots who have allowed themselves to become idiots. That's not quite the same thing as being slightly incapable of thinking and learning. If you have a learning disability, and people do, and I know people who do, and I feel bad for them because they will never attain the level of intellect that other people attain, and that's unfortunate, and I feel bad for them. However, if you're an idiot and you chose to be an idiot by just simply refusing to be reasonable and logical and rational and think things through to the logical conclusion, then, sorry, don't feel sorry for you. I have no sympathy for you. You've been duped, and you allowed yourself to be duped. You've been manipulated and indoctrinated and conditioned by the matrix, by the mind benders of the socialist collective agenda people. And, you've allowed it to happen. You believe it, and you're just believing bullshit. It doesn't look good to you. I mean, listen, it's not a compliment to be brainwashed. And most Americans are. Like the marriage thing, like how many generations did it take for that to become a universally accepted in America concept when it's a total fabrication and a total lie? A fraud. You don't need a license to be married. It's just stupid. But most people in America believe that. I say most. Anywhere from 51% to 98%. And it's a hard row to hoe to get people to wake up to these realities and these truths, because it messes with their dumbed down delusions. And it's sad. And it breaks my heart. All right, I'm going to end this segment, and I'm going to just say this. I've heard it. Dave Champion used to say it a lot at the end of his programs, and so I'm going to say it too. It is the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government. And that was Thomas Paine. All right, we'll catch you next time. Have a good day.